There's a stereotype that Americans don't know much about the world, that they're not worldly, and that they're quite frankly dumb. Is that stereotype true? Where did that stereotype come from? And will that stereotype endure over time? Will it endure over time? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Stereotypes happen for a reason, and once they've been established within a national or global consciousness, they're really hard to shake. Once you've latched on to a stereotype, it's entertaining, it's fun, and gives you something to talk about. So I don't think anybody's really gonna be willing to discard that stereotype. But let's look at why it exists in the first place. Why do people from other nations think Americans are not worldly? Why do people from other nations think Americans are dumb? Well, let's look at the American landscape. We are located above Mexico, which you could argue is a non-military threat, and below Canada, which again you could argue is a non-military threat. We're geographically isolated from the rest of the world. Thus, we are oceans away from the geopolitics of other countries. Having said that, we don't interact with the intensities of those geopolitical tensions that other countries often experience, as other countries border other countries. So there's very little incentive for Americans to learn that much about the world when the rest of the world and the rest of the geopolitical spectrum seems just so far off. And as a result of that, a lot of Americans can't tell you where some countries are on the map. They're geographically dumb. They really are, because they don't travel that much. Only 40% of Americans have passports, so 60% of the population isn't going out and seeing the world. So that percent of the population, you may guess, might not know much about the world outside the US. Perhaps they know a lot about the US and its history, but they most likely don't know that much about all the countries outside of the US. And thus, when people from the US travel outside of it, their, I guess, ignorance about the world and geopolitics really shows, in terms of sometimes they don't know where countries are, they don't know the leaders of countries, as in the names of the presidents of countries, as well as a host of other obvious cultural things that most people from, say, Europe or Asia would just inherently know. So that's one reason why the stereotype of the dumb American exists, and there are plenty more. This is just a little teaser.